The entrance door slammed shut so loudly, it probably woke the entire neighborhood. Damn door. You can't even install a proper closer, Mark thought, frowning. He felt the carefully maintained positive mood slowly evaporate, and the day had just begun. One of the last August days this year wasn't particularly warm. There was a chilly autumn bite in the air. Nights were increasingly pitch black, especially at 5 in the morning. Well, let's go. Mark cheered himself on, and springing up high, started jogging toward a small grove that shimmered like a green blotch between the gray high dash rises. Mark didn't like running, nor did he like getting up early, but everyone has to choose between want and must. For Mark, it was must. He had to be fit and healthy to endure the brutal relay race their company had gotten dragged into due to recent changes in Russia's IT sector. He had to work to the bone finding clients, good developers, and useful domestic software. It wasn't surprising that in this schedule, Mark hadn't noticed his rise from a simple sales guy to director of planning and targeted development. The position wasn't the top one in the company, but definitely among the significant ones. Along the way, he realized that if he didn't start exercising and quit smoking, he probably wouldn't make it. Mark never lacked self-control, so he quit smoking the very next day. But the workouts were harder. After all, he was still a big shot in the company, big enough to have a bulky planner in his desk, filled page after page for the next month, but not powerful enough to cross out some appointments and free up time. That's why he had to get up at 5 and run. By the time Mark limped to the grove, it was slightly warmed up. In the shade of birches and poplars, he stopped holding back, picked up speed, now moved about 3 times faster, occasionally sprinting. It was worth noting that running on forest paths was quite difficult since it was a real forest, not a park or alley. There were no smooth roads, only narrow, crooked trails where you might trip over a gnarled root and tumble into nearby bushes, possibly breaking fingers. And that was the best-case scenario. Mark's good eyesight, knowledge of the area, and absence of serious obstacles like branches, roots, or trash saved him. He weaved between trees, lazily dodging sudden branches and low, prickly shrubs, when suddenly he heard a muffled female scream ahead. The grove was a favorite hangout spot for wandering youth, barbecue lovers, and noisy gatherings, so anything could happen here. At worst, I'll run away and call the police, Mark thought as he rounded a thin, scraggly tree and finally saw the person he had rushed to help. The victim, a pretty young brunette, leaned her back against a tree, grimacing as she inspected a scraped knee. An athlete too, Mark guessed, and to avoid frightening anyone, loudly asked, "Are you okay?" I heard a scream. Yes. I just tripped on a branch and hit my knee on a damn rock. Where on earth did that come from? Brought here with the other stones by a truck when the local authorities decided to add some comfort and civilization to this neglected patch on the city's edge. But that's where it ended. Ouch. She tried to move her injured leg, but the bruise was bad enough to make her grab her knee and hiss, "How am I supposed to get home now? Should have stuck to morning runs, dumbass. Did some sport." "Let me help you," Mark offered hesitantly. By now, he had taken a better look at her and decided she wasn't bad at all. Actually, quite the opposite. Just his luck with the opposite sex was poor. Short stature, a bald spot at 30, and freckled round cheeks paired with a proudly upturned long nose didn't exactly win him female attention. And he wasn't interested in women he found unattractive. In the end, Mark was realistic about his talents and prospects and knew his worth. "No, thanks. The leg doesn't hurt that much. Although, help me bandage it. It'll be hard to do alone, and God forbid I get an infection." Mark quickly stepped closer and crouched down as the girl took off a small backpack from her shoulders and pulled out bandages. Kisa plaster, a small bottle with cloudy liquid, and tiny scissors. "Here, wipe your hands with this wipe and hold the bandage." "Mark," he introduced himself. "Margo," she said. "Let's see how bad it is." The decisive movement. Margo rolled up the dark blue leggings on her slender leg to her knee and began inspecting the large bruise, where an unpleasant wound had formed in the center. "Take a piece of bandage and wipe the wound." "I can't do it myself. I'm terribly afraid of pain," Margo admitted. Mark frowned as he took a closer look. I don't want to scare you, but something's definitely wrong with the bruise, he said. I see something that looks like pus, but I can't understand how it appeared so quickly. I don't want to scare you either, but the wound itself is fine. It's me who's different, since birth. Can we switch to informal? It'll be easier to explain. Sorry I didn't warn you. My blood has always been this color, not red like everyone else's, but yellowish. Doctors have examined me a lot, but found nothing. No health problems either. So you can relax, though I didn't ask for your help. If you leave, I won't be offended. I'm used to it. No. Of course I'll help, Mark said, suddenly feeling awkward, as if he really wanted to leave Margo alone in the forest with a scraped knee. All right, then unwrap the bandage. I'll cut it, and you roll it into a few layers and soak it. With this, she held up the bottle. It's not peroxide, but a tincture with herbs and alcohol. My grandma taught me how to make it, then press it to the wound and hold it there. After that, I can manage myself. Margo deftly cut the bandage with her manicure scissors, waited until Mark rolled it into layers, moistened it from the bottle, applied the patch to the wound. You weren't scared? Good job. Even doctors react differently to my blood. I remember this one guy examining me, laughing. Everyone's blood is normal red, but yours is straw-colored. Be proud, straw-colored. Can you believe it? As she pressed the white square against her knee with the remaining bandage, Margo suddenly smiled sadly and asked, By the way, please don't tell anyone about me. I just moved here, renting an apartment nearby, close to work. I don't want locals pointing fingers at me, calling me Satan's spawn, mutant, or worse. Some people have vivid imaginations. I've learned that the hard way. I wasn't thinking anything like that, Mark immediately assured her, then changed the subject. So, what do you do for work? Margo tied the bandage's end into a tight knot, carefully pulled down her leggings, and started to stand up. Mark hurried to help, and soon the girl was confidently on her feet, though wincing in pain. It's bearable. I'll have to move. At a snail's pace, she said. My job is rare, interesting, full of emotions, and pays well. But I don't like any job title. Can't be explained in just a few words. If you walk me to the edge of the woods, I'll tell you. You've got me curious. What kind of job is that? Don't worry, I wasn't planning on leaving you. I'll make sure you get home, Mark said, grabbing Margo's extended hand and gently leading her along the path out of the forest. Thank God I've met a gentleman. Nowadays, that's as rare as an honest politician or food without additives. That's not my phrase, though. My grandma, Baba Michel, used to scold today's life. She was a tough old woman. The whole neighborhood feared her. They said she was a witch. Because of her, they often called me a witch in childhood and even beat me a couple of times. But that's nonsense now, a thing of the past. Why are you quiet? Tell me something too. We have a long way to go. Mark already knew Margo liked to talk, but listening to her was pleasant and interesting, so he answered honestly. I'm all ears. You tell a good story. I can't talk that smoothly. Well, except for work. Actually, not much happens in my life besides work. Then tell me about your work and I'll tell you about mine. Maybe we'll get out of this. Cursed forest yet? Damn it thrice. Nothing much to say. I work in an IT company. I used to promote a domestic software package, a full set in one box. If you only knew how much effort it takes to convince people our programs aren't worse than Chinese ones, but I managed. A year ago I got promoted, and now I have no time at all. I'm driving all over town, back and forth, end to end. Fighting for the minds and wallets of domestic businessmen. I work with officials and public organizations. We even launched advertising recently, and things seem to be working. People got interested, sales increased. Now I have to work late into the night to consolidate success and expand. Finding time for anything besides work is very hard. That's why I run in the mornings. I can't spare a minute during the day, and I need to improve endurance. My body's starting to fail. Mark suddenly felt dizzy. His heart fluttered and pounded rapidly and irregularly. Forcing him to stop and grasp the nearest tree with his hand, Margo noticed something was wrong and tugged Mark's arm, asking, "What's wrong? Are you okay?" Head suddenly spun. Shouldn't have mentioned health. Jinxed myself, but don't worry. I'll get you home somehow. You know what? I'll make my own way home. I'll limp slowly. No, I'm fine. I'll walk you home. Mark straightened and resumed walking along the path toward the residential area. Helping Margo avoid the most dangerous parts, you better tell me about your work. All right, like I said, you can't explain. My job in a few words. You have to start from childhood. Mine wasn't very happy, as my mother died giving birth. Doctors said her heart gave out. She and my father drank heavily before I was born, so it caught up with her. I spent the first 2 years in the hospital. They ran all kinds of tests and couldn't figure out why my blood was different from everyone else's. They never found anything. By the way, my father didn't even remember me. After Mom died, he drank even more. Baba Michelle took me out of the hospital. She raised me, but honestly, I would have been better off in an orphanage. She didn't love me, didn't even call me by name, called me spoiled. Funny thing, I only learned my real name when I started school, but nobody loved me there either. With each word, Mark felt worse. His heart pounded harder, choking on the blood rushing through his veins and arteries. His dizziness stopped, but was replaced by a severe headache. Then the strange pain spread through his body and eased a little, not much further. I should make it, Mark thought, and pushed himself harder. He barely paid attention to Margo's words anymore, focusing instead on the path beneath his feet. Margo, however, was so caught up in her story she noticed nothing around her. Then Baba Michelle Diedme, she rest in peace. She passed 6 months before my 18th birthday. Some guy from the local authorities showed up then. A fat-faced jerk couldn't even bother to introduce himself. He walked into the house and said, "You're almost an adult now, Margo. No point sending you to the orphanage. You'll turn 18 soon. Stay here for now. We'll visit and help." I never saw him or any other helpers again. That was good. I didn't need anyone. I was just happy no one yelled or called me names. For the first time in my life, I was happy. But not for long. The money Baba Michelle had saved for a rainy day ran out quickly. I had to find work. Mark's heart jolted again, and he grabbed a birch tree. I already knew he wouldn't make it on his own, and croaked, "Margo, I feel really bad. Yeah, I see. To rest a little. The nearest house is just ahead. We have to get there. Should call an ambulance, but I don't have a phone with me, and I'm scared to leave you alone," Margo said, looking at Mark with feverish eyes and, somehow smiling. Have. Mark fumbled with his fingers, unzipping his jacket and trying to pull out his smartphone. But it slipped from his weakening hand and fell into the grass. Margo paid no attention. She let go of his hand and stepped back to paces. From there, she studied him intently, like a sculpture or a painting in a museum. "Wait a bit. Rest. Hold on just a little longer. It'll be over soon. Meanwhile, I'll finish my story. I've never told anyone this before, and now I just can't stop," Margo said, continuing. "My job didn't work out. Baba Michelle managed to sell a few things, but the money ran out quickly. Then I couldn't think of anything better than stealing a carton of milk from the nearest store. Then another store, and another. Stole a little each time to avoid getting caught. Damn. They caught me a couple of times, but seeing my meager loot, they just chased me away with a slap. One time they didn't even take the stolen goods." Mark couldn't stand or speak anymore. He slid down the birch trunk to the ground and barely managed to sit up. Margo's image danced before his eyes. She kept talking, each sentence louder and more aggressive. "Of course I was noticed, not by the police, but by other petty thieves. Like me, only they stole more and sold their loot right away to market dealers. They gave me an ultimatum, either steal with them and follow their rules, or they'd break all my bones if they caught me again on their turf. Then I thought it was a good deal. But later, when we went down to some basement to celebrate with vodka and sunflower seeds, I changed my mind. There was this tall, skinny guy who explained it to me. You see, Margo, nothing's simple in this life. Everything has a price. We're taking you in, ready-made. What's in it for us? Nothing." Mark heard Margo spit into the grass and hiss angrily, then right there on the cold, bare floor, they carefully and sparingly poured vodka into my mouth. They touched me, laughed, and joked. They weren't in a hurry, because I couldn't run away anymore. They enjoyed my helplessness, my tears. First they took off my clothes, then theirs, and then did things I still desperately want to forget. But soon, all of them started dying. Every single one died in that filthy basement. Mark finally stopped feeling nauseous. The world stopped spinning, but his vision suddenly blurred sharply. He could barely see, but knew Margo had crouched in front of him, leaning against a nearby tree. Now Mark was certain that Margo was the cause of his wretched state. "Why?" was all Mark could whisper. In the next moment, a sharp pain stabbed his chest. A red haze spread before his eyes, and blood gushed from his nose. His head dropped onto his chest, and he had no strength to lift it. He saw only his sports suit, a thin stream of blood dripping from his nose. Yellow, straw-colored blood. Margo spoke again, now very close. Mark couldn't see her face, but her voice was calm, just like at the start of their conversation. Calm and satisfied. She kept talking, now almost whispering into his ear. "Why? What did you want to ask me, Mark? Why did those thieves die? Why are you dying? Or maybe something else. Too bad you can't talk anymore, but I'll try to answer. Both them and you were killed by what lives inside me. I don't know what it is, but most of the time it stays dormant." Margo stepped back and continued in a normal voice. "You know, after the very first time, I couldn't understand what happened for a long time. I thought it was the fake vodka. But then, it happened again and again. The streets are dangerous. Eventually, I realized the poison in my blood reacts to fear and pain and kills everyone who somehow comes in contact with it, with my straw-colored blood." Margo giggled softly. "I didn't realize at first I could control it. You just have to create the right conditions, and that's it. The best part is my blood leaves no traces, so no one suspects me. It's convenient, right? That's why I decided to become a killer, a murderer, a poisoner. Actually, I don't like any of those names. But the process itself." Margo leaned close to Mark again and added, "Your blood started reddening again. So in a couple of minutes, this will all be over, and you'll die." "I'm sorry, Mark. I tried to make it quick so you wouldn't suffer. I even had to break your knee with a rock. That hurts. Unpleasant memories help too. You just need to change them a bit. Instead of Baba Michelle or those guys in the basement, imagine yourself, and then everything starts working on its own. Don't be mad at me. Okay? I'm not a psychopath. You were ordered and asked to make it quiet, without noise or reporters. You were just my job." A man was running through the forest early in the morning and suddenly felt bad. Nobody was nearby, and he died. A normal death, natural and uninteresting to anyone. Goodbye, Mark. It was nice to meet you. Margo straightened and slowly, unevenly, began walking away into the forest thicket. The rustling of leaves under her sneakers was the last thing Mark clearly heard before his heart twitched one last time. Then came the darkness.